right, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
For the passion that ignites the sound and the joy of music all around. For every note your students play, let the learning lead the way. It's the Music Educator Podcast. The Music Educator Podcast.
Welcome to the Music Educator Podcast, the podcast designed to help music teachers solve real classroom problems, strengthen their teaching, and help their students become more confident. Musicians. Throughout this season, we are examining common problems experienced by students on individual band instruments. More importantly, we are identifying practical solutions that teachers can use in rehearsals, sectional instruction, and private lessons. Today's instrument is the B-flat soprano clarinet. The clarinet can produce a warm, expressive, and remarkably flexible sound. However, beginning and developing clarinetists often encounter problems involving register changes, squeaks, reeds, finger placement, articulation, intonation, and instrument setup. In this episode, we will examine 10 common problems experienced by B-flat soprano clarinet players and discuss practical strategies for correcting them. Let's begin. Problem number 1 of Educator: difficulty connecting the registers. One of the most recognizable clarinet problems occurs when students attempt to move from the lower register into the clarion register. This transition is often called crossing the break. However, describing it as connecting the registers may be more helpful. The word break can make students expect a disruption. The actual goal is to create one continuous sound as the instrument changes from one register to another. Students may experience squeaks, delayed notes, sudden gaps in the sound, or a lower note that refuses to speak. Several factors can cause this problem. The student may reduce the air immediately before pressing the register key. The fingers may not cover the tone holes completely. Several fingers may move at different speeds. The left index finger may lift too far away from the instrument when moving between the A key and the first tone hole. The first solution is to maintain fast, supported air throughout the register change. Students should think about blowing through the upper note rather than stopping the air and restarting it. A useful exercise is to begin with simple register slurs. Have the student play a low note with a full, steady sound, press the register key, and allow the corresponding clarion note to speak without tonguing again. The objective is not speed. The objective is maintaining a continuous airstream and hearing the two notes connect smoothly. When moving through the throat tones, students can keep the fingers of the right hand down. For example, when playing throat tone G or A before moving into the clarion register, placing the right hand finger over their tone holes reduces the number of fingers that must move during the transition. Teachers should also watch the left index finger. It should remain curved and close to the instrument. When moving from the A key to the first tone hole, the finger should roll smoothly into position rather than lifting completely away from the clarinet. Slow practice, steady air, and efficient finger movement will make register connections much more reliable. Problem number 2, frequent squeaking. Every clarinet player squeaks occasionally. However, frequent squeaking usually indicates a specific problem that can be identified and corrected. A squeak occurs when the reed begins vibrating at an unintended frequency. The instrument may suddenly jump to a much higher partial, producing the familiar high-pitched squawk. One common cause is incomplete tone hole coverage. Clarinet tone holes must be completely sealed. Even a small opening can interrupt the air column. Students should cover the tone holes with the fleshy pads of their fingers rather than the fingertips. Teachers can ask students to remove their hands from the instrument and examine their fingers. Circular impressions from the tone holes can help confirm that the correct part of the finger is being used. Another cause is biting. When a student clamps the jaw tightly around the mouthpiece, the reed cannot vibrate freely. The embouchure should be firm enough to control the reed, but it should not pinch it closed. Encourage students to keep the chin flat, the corners secure, and the jaw stable without excessive pressure. Taking too much mouthpiece into the mouth can also cause squeaks. One way to find an effective mouthpiece position is to have the student play an open G and gradually take in more mouthpiece. When the sound becomes unstable or begins to squeak, the student should move back slightly. The condition of the reed must also be checked. Dry, chipped, warped, or poorly aligned reeds can make squeaking much more likely. When a student squeaks, avoid simply saying, "Don't squeak." Instead, diagnose the cause. Check the fingers, embouchure, mouthpiece placement, air support, and reed. A squeak is not random. It is information. Problem number 3, the grunting or undertone sound. Sometimes a student presses the register key, but the expected upper note does not speak. Instead, the clarinet produces a low humming, growling, or grunting sound. This is often called an undertone. The undertone commonly appears when students begin using the register key or when they first explore the altissimo register. The primary cause is usually insufficient airspeed. Upper register notes require fast, focused air. If the air is slow or unfocused, the instrument may remain partially connected to the lower fundamental. Tongue position is also important. If the tongue rests too low inside the mouth, the airstream may not be focused enough to produce the upper note. Have the student raise the tongue high and forward, similar to the position used when saying the vowel sound E, as in the word beat. This does not mean tightening the throat. The back of the throat should remain open while the tongue directs a concentrated stream of air toward the reed. Students should also avoid biting in an attempt to force the note upward. Biting may temporarily change the sound, but it restricts the reed and creates additional tone and intonation problems. If the undertone continues, check the reed. A reed that is extremely soft or lacks sufficient strength through its center may not provide enough resistance for the upper registers. The student may also need to allow slightly more reed to vibrate by adjusting the position of the lower lip on the mouthpiece. A good practice sequence is to begin with a stable low note, establish a strong sound, increase the airspeed, raise the tongue, and then press the register key without tonguing again. The upper note should emerge from the existing airstream. Problem number 4, an airy or breathy tone. An airy tone can make the clarinet sound dull, unfocused, and weak. Some students may believe they simply need to blow harder. However, an airy sound can come from several different sources. The first possibility is weak or unfocused air support. Clarinet air should be fast and concentrated. Students can imagine blowing cold air through a narrow opening rather than warm air through a wide opening. Another possibility is air escaping from the corners of the mouth. The embouchure should create a complete seal around the mouthpiece. The corners should remain firm and directed inward. The lower lip should cushion the reed, and the upper teeth should rest securely on the top of the mouthpiece. A reed that is too soft may also contribute to an airy or muffled tone. If a student has developed stronger air support and embouchure control, moving from a size 2 reed to a size 2.5 may provide more resistance and improve the clarity of the sound. However, teachers should not automatically prescribe a harder reed. A reed that is too hard can create an equally serious set of problems. The reed strength must be appropriate for the student, mouthpiece, and stage of development. Mechanical leaks should also be considered. A pad that does not seal properly can create a persistent airy sound, especially on certain notes. If a student's tone suddenly becomes airy after previously sounding clear, inspect the reed and instrument before assuming the student has forgotten how to play. Have the student produce long tones at a comfortable dynamic. Listen for a centered sound, steady air, and consistent volume. Long tones remain one of the simplest and most effective ways to improve clarinet tone. Problem number 5, flat, sharp, or unstable intonation. Clarinet intonation is influenced by the instrument, the reed, temperature, embouchure pressure, air support, voicing, and dynamic level. Students may notice that the clarinet plays flat when they play loudly and sharp when they play softly. Certain notes and also have natural tendencies that must be learned and managed. Before tuning, the clarinet must be warm. A cold clarinet will generally play flat. Students should play for several minutes before making major adjustments to the instrument. Many ensembles tune the clarinet using a single concert B flat. While this provides useful information, one note does not reveal the intonation of the entire instrument. A more complete approach is to check notes from different sections of the clarinet. A first finger F sharp can help determine whether an adjustment is needed at the barrel. A clarion F sharp can provide information about the relationship between the upper and lower joints. A long tube B can help determine whether a small adjustment near the bell may be useful. Physical adjustments should be made carefully. Pulling the barrel out lengthens the instrument and lowers the pitch. Pushing it in shortens the instrument and raises the pitch. Students must also learn to make small adjustments with the embouchure and oral cavity. Generally, reducing lip pressure can lower the pitch, while slightly increasing firmness can raise it. However, extreme embouchure changes will damage the tone. Voicing is often the more musical solution. Raising or lowering the tongue can influence both pitch and resonance without requiring the student to bite or collapse the embouchure. Teach students to use a tuner as a source of information rather than as a set of traffic lights. They should listen first, observe the tuner second, make an adjustment, and then listen again. Good intonation begins with good tone. Problem number 6, incorrect tongue position and voicing. A clarinet student may appear to have a correct embouchure but still produce a dull tone, unstable pitch, or unreliable upper register notes. The problem may be occurring inside the mouth, where it cannot easily be seen. Tongue position shapes the airstream and affects the response, pitch, and resonance of the clarinet. The tongue should not remain in exactly the same position for every note. In general, the tongue rises as the student moves higher on the instrument. Teachers can introduce voicing by connecting different registers with vowel sounds. The low chalumeau register can be associated with an indao shape. Throat tones may use an A shape. The clarion register may feel closer to O, while the altissimo register often requires a higher E position. These vowel descriptions are teaching tools rather than rigid rules. Each player's oral cavity is different. The goal is to help students recognize that the shape inside the mouth must change as the pitch changes. The throat should remain open and relaxed. Raising the tongue does not mean squeezing the throat or tightening the neck. One useful exercise is to have students whisper different vowel sounds while noticing how the tongue changes position. They can then reproduce those internal shapes while playing long tones or register slurs. Voicing can be difficult to teach because it is invisible. Teachers may need to use vowel imagery, air direction exercises, mouthpiece and barrel practice, and careful listening. Once students understand voicing, many problems that previously seemed unrelated begin to improve. Problem number 7, heavy, sluggish, or chewing articulation. Clarinet articulation should be clean and precise without stopping the air. Some students produce a heavy thud at the beginning of every note. Others move the jaw each time they tongue, creating a chewing motion. These problems often occur because the tongue is too low, too far back, or touching too much of the reed. A useful articulation concept is to place the upper surface near the tip of the tongue against the tip area of the reed. The exact contact point will vary slightly among players, but the motion should remain small and efficient. Syllables such as T or ta can help students place the tongue in a forward position. T encourages a higher tongue, while ta may produce a slightly broader attack. The most important principle is that the air must continue behind the tongue. The tongue does not create the air. It briefly interrupts an airstream that is already moving. Have students imagine turning on a faucet and lightly tapping the stream with a finger. The water continues to flow even though it is briefly interrupted. Clarinet articulation works in a similar way. A useful exercise is to sustain a note with steady air and gently touch the reeds several times with the tongue. The tone should stop and restart without the stomach collapsing, the jaw moving, or the air pressure disappearing. Teachers should watch the student's chin and jaw while listening. If the jaw moves with every note, have the student practice articulating on the mouthpiece and barrel while observing the face in a mirror. Smaller tongue motion and continuous air will produce faster and cleaner articulation. Problem number 8, poor finger technique in finger flipping. Clarinet fingering requires coordination, especially during chromatic passages. One common problem is finger flipping. This occurs when one finger lifts at the same moment another finger moves downward in the opposite direction. Because these motions are difficult to synchronize perfectly, a brief unwanted note or interruption may appear between the intended pitches. This frequently happens when moving between F natural and F sharp or between B flat and B natural. The most effective solution is to teach the appropriate alternate fingerings before the student develops a strong flipping habit. Alternate fingerings allow the student to keep more fingers in place and reduce contrary motion. The exact fingering depends on the notes before and after the pitch. Students should learn that the correct fingering is often the fingering that creates the smoothest musical connection in a particular passage. Chromatic scales provide an excellent opportunity to teach alternate fingering systematically. Practice should begin slowly enough that the student can hear every connection. If a blip appears between two notes, stop and isolate the transition. Students should also avoid lifting the fingers high above the instrument. Curved fingers should hover close to their home positions. Fast technique is not created by moving the fingers faster. It is created by moving them less. Problem number 9. The clarinet produces no sound. Occasionally, a student blows into the clarinet and no sound emerges at all. Before changing the embouchure or telling the student to use more air, begin with the equipment. First, make sure there is a reed on the mouthpiece. Next, confirm that the reed is moistened, positioned with its flat side against the mouthpiece, centered from side to side, and aligned properly near the tip. The ligature should hold the reed securely without being placed over the thin vibrating portion of the reed. A dry reed may not respond. Allow the reed to absorb moisture before playing. The student may also be taking too little mouthpiece into the mouth. When only the very tip of the mouthpiece is inside the mouth, the lower lip may prevent the reed from vibrating. One method for locating an appropriate embouchure position is the paper test. Slide a thin piece of paper between the reed and mouthpiece until it stops. The point where it stops provides an approximate location for the lower lip. Instrument assembly must also be checked. The bridge keys between the upper and lower joints must be properly aligned. If the joints are rotated incorrectly, one of the pads may remain open and prevent the clarinet from responding normally. When diagnosing a no-sound problem, simplify the instrument. Remove the upper and lower joints and have the student play only the mouthpiece and barrel. If the mouthpiece and barrel produce a sound, add the upper joint and test again. Continue adding sections until the problem appears. This process helps determine whether the issue involves the player, the reed, the assembly, or the mechanism. Problem number 10. Stuffy, resistant, or inconsistent reeds. The reed is the clarinet's primary sound-producing component, and reed problems can easily be mistaken for student problems. A reed may look undamaged but still feel stuffy, unresponsive, or unusually difficult to play. Some reeds are simply poorly matched to the student or mouthpiece. Others may have uneven cane, with one side vibrating more freely than the other. Teachers should first inspect the reed for chips, cracks, warping, discoloration, or an uneven tip. The reed should be tested on a mouthpiece that is known to work properly. Students should also rotate among several playable reeds, rather than using the same reed until it fails. A simple play test can help identify an unbalanced reed. Have the students sustain an open G with the mouthpiece in its normal position. Then rotate the mouthpiece slightly in one direction and then the other. Changing the position of the reed inside the mouth slightly dampens one side. If the reed responds noticeably better in one position, one side may be vibrating more freely than the other. Experienced players and teachers sometimes balance reeds using very fine sandpaper on a flat surface. However, reed adjustment requires care. Only very small amounts of cane should be removed, generally from the shoulder areas. The tip, heart, and central spine of the reed are structurally important and should not be altered casually. For beginning students, replacing an unreliable reed is often safer and more efficient than attempting a detailed adjustment. A student should not spend an entire rehearsal struggling against a reed that will not respond. Before correcting the player, check the reed. Final thoughts. The B-flat soprano clarinet presents a unique combination of technical and musical challenges. Students must learn to cover open tone holes completely, coordinate several fingers at once, maintain a stable embouchure, control the reed, direct the air, change the shape of the oral cavity, and connect multiple registers. That is a significant amount of coordination for a developing musician. When a problem occurs, teachers should avoid treating every mistake as a lack of effort. A squeak may come from an uncovered tone hole. A weak upper note may come from slow air or low tongue position. An airy sound may come from an equipment leak. A heavy articulation may come from the jaw rather than the tongue. A student who cannot produce a sound may simply have a dry or incorrectly positioned reed. Effective clarinet instruction begins with accurate diagnosis. Listen to the sound. Observe the student's posture, hands, embouchure, and breathing. Inspect the reed and instrument. Isolate the problem, test one possible cause at a time, and provide the student with a specific action to perform. Instead of saying, fix your tone, ask the student to increase the airspeed. Instead of saying, stop squeaking, check the tone hole coverage. Instead of saying, play it again, identify what the student should change before the next attempt. The clearer the diagnosis, the more useful the solution. Thank you for listening to the Music Educator Podcast. I hope today's discussion helps you guide your clarinet students toward a clearer sound, stronger technique, and greater confidence. Until next time, keep teaching, keep learning, and keep making music.